Hi, I'm Joel Persinger with Practical Defense Systems with a couple of pro tips for you on your practice with your firearm you're carrying for concealed carry or for work, or maybe that you have a handgun for home defense. Sometimes practice is difficult to get in because, particularly if you're in California where we are, because ranges are few and far between. And quite often, sometimes you're stuck on a square range where you're standing in a lane and there's somebody to the right or left of you and the target is in front of you and you can't move and you can't do much of anything except stand there and shoot. Well, I want to give you some hints on how you can improve your practice so that it throws a little bit of realism in it, even if you're on a square range. Now, it just so happens I do have access to a range where I can shoot and move and work from the holster and do those kind of things. So I recently went to go practice with this gun. And the reason I did is because I don't carry this gun very often until it gets to be colder in the wintertime or spring. Well, as you can tell by what I'm wearing, I'm working around in the shop today, and it's a little chilly in here, so I'm actually wearing different clothing than I normally do in the spring and summer. In spring and summer, I'm wearing t-shirts and shorts and sneakers all the time, or flip-flops or something, so I don't carry this gun. But when it gets to be this time of year, I do carry this Springfield XD40 subcompact a lot because I can easily conceal it under something like this. Well, when we get closer to that time of year, I want to get out and practice with it since I haven't practiced with it a lot this year. So I went to the range to practice shooting, moving, drawing from concealment, and so on. Now you'll notice I'm not drawing from concealment lightning fast in an effort to try to beat the bad guy. I'm just drawing from concealment in order to practice the skill. Obviously, I can draw a little faster than that if I want to, but sometimes the old martial arts adage that slow becomes smooth and smooth becomes fast is a good thing to remember in your practice. Now, when you can't move and you're standing still, one thing you can do is one of the things I did during this practice session for me. I used realistic targets. Now, I'm not a shill for the target company. I didn't get paid by the target company. I don't sell their targets and I don't make any money from them. I'm just giving you an additional tool you can use in your practice to inject some realism. The target company is Action Targets. I'm going to put a link in the description to this video for you so that you can go look at the targets that they have available. There's a lot of them. And what I like about them is they do present a more realistic picture than just a silhouette that stands in front of you and is just a silhouette of a person with the bullseye in the wrong place. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's take it, for example, this silhouette that I was using at that time that actually has a man standing behind a big metal railing made out of what looked like heavy piping. Well, the bullet isn't going to go through that piping, so I can't shoot at the piping if I actually want to stop the threat. I have to shoot at the bad guy who's trying to hurt me, which means I have to be mindful of any cover, partial or complete, this person may be behind. Or for that matter, this picture of this woman who is mostly behind cover. I have very few options here. If I want to hit her heart area, I have very few options in which to do it. And if I want to hit her head, there's not very much of her exposed. So I really have to take more precision shots, which means it's important that I get off the X, get out of the way, and get behind cover if I can, so that we're at least both fighting from behind cover. But if that's not available, I still have to get on the target and hit in the right place. Or the target that's presented more like this gives me a sideways view of my threat. Threats are not always going to stand in the perfect position. And at Action Targets, for example, you can buy targets that present people bending forward, leaning back, leaning to the side, shooting, kind of around there as they're running away, or whatever. You can get all kinds of different presentations, which are more like what you're likely to see on the street if you're ever threatened by anybody with a gun. I suggest you start using these kinds of targets rather than the silhouettes, because the way we practice is the way we're actually going to fight if we ever have to. And if all you ever practice against is a silhouette with the bullseye in the wrong place, look at where the bullseye is typically on these silhouettes, is down here. Well, if that's the case, you're going to give the bad guy a bellyache that's going to last all summer or all winter or whatever, but it might not stop him or her. You want that target to have the bullseye up here in the upper thoracic cavity where you're hitting vascular tissue, big arteries, you're hitting lungs, you're potentially impacting the heart. This is stuff that will more likely stop a fight. And so that bullseye really needs to be raised up. And in fact, at one point, I was actually trying to make it around the cover on a couple of these or hit them in the right place, and I was hitting them way too low or in the wrong place. So I took some Caldwell orange peel targets and I put them in the right place so that I could focus my mind on where my shots really need to go. And I'm going to tell you, I screwed it up a lot, which is why I go practice. Part of practicing is to recognize where your deficiencies are so that you can improve. So I take those sticky targets with me so that if I find I need to change where my point of aim or my point of impact, I can do that, and then now I'm focused on that target. So when I put up a brand new target without that Caldwell sticky target on it, and you don't have to use Caldwell, you use any of those kind of targets, shoot and seize or whatever, without that kind of target that shows me immediately when I hit, that's fine. I now know on that particular presentation, if I have a bad guy with that presentation, I know where the rounds need to go. And the more I practice that, the more instinctive that's going to be. So if I see this presentation, I know I want the rounds to go in here, not down here. So I'm going to start shooting there automatically. If I get a presentation where somebody's hiding behind something right here, I know I need to shoot to this side of it, but I don't want to shoot down here. I want to shoot up here. So this is the way that I practice. Now, a cautionary note, you may find some ranges, public ranges, won't let you use those kind of targets. And they'll tell you, well, it's because they don't want you to be shooting at human beings. Yeah, but they'll let you shoot at a silhouette of a human being. It doesn't make any sense to me, that mode of thinking, but you will find some ranges like that. So what you might do is get the action target website on your phone and go to your local range you go to all the time, talk to the management and say, hey, can I use these particular targets or targets like this? And if you get the thumbs up, you're good to go. If you get the no way, Jose, maybe you need to start scouting around for a different range to use so that you can actually use those. Because even if you're stuck in a lane on a square range, you can still practice with targets like that, and you can change up the way you practice. In other words, you can get at the ready position and have somebody say go, or you can buy a shooting timer. I'll be doing a video with shooting timers here pretty soon for you. And you can reach up and try to put 2 rounds where they belong, or 3 rounds where they belong, and break up how many rounds. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 5, because you don't want to get the habit of just firing 2 when it might take 5 to stop the threat. You don't want to get the habit of always firing 5 when you fired the first one and the guy fell down and the bad guy's on the deck. You don't need to shoot anymore. Otherwise, you're launching rounds downrange and you're impacting people you don't intend to shoot. So there's all these different things you can do with your defensive training. And frankly, it makes your shooting a little bit more fun when you go to the range. It's a little more challenging. It teaches you more, and you don't necessarily have to go take a $5,000 class at a big famous gun training company in order to do it. So hopefully this helps. This is, again, one more tool in your toolbox, which isn't terribly expensive, but will allow you to be able to defend yourself that much better because you took the time to instill a little realism in your practice at the range. Thank you very much for all of your support of Practical Defense Systems. Thanks for being a great student, and we do really appreciate your business. Be safe wherever you go, okay?